Hello everyone, how you doing? I thought I'd do a bit of a vlog tonight. I was out observing with the telescope earlier with the new 10-inch Meade Dobsonian. Only had a few gaps in the cloud and observed a few messy objects, open star clusters, a few galaxies, but there was a lot of high level cloud. So I come back in again. I've left the telescope outside and I'm going to wait till later to see if it clears a bit better. But in the meantime, I was in the office here and I seen a story in Space Weather today about some of the huge sunspots and geomagnetic storms that happened back in 2001, 2002, 2003. So I happened to be going through my old observing logbooks out of curiosity because I remember them being some of the finest geomagnetic storms I've ever seen in my life. And I found several of my entries here in this old observing log. And what I wanted to do is, just for prosperity and for those interested in the Aurora and what can actually be seen Aurora-wise from Northern Ireland when the really epic stuff happens, I'm going to read out my actual entry here. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, bear with me, listen to the words. This is wrote back in 2003 and my writing is really small back then. You won't even be able to see it this wide angle lens. No. But the writing is very small, it's hard to read. I must have had really good eyesight back then or something. The writing was so small. I'm actually sometimes using the magnifying glass now to read some of the writing. That's what happens when you get older. But anyway, I'm going to set this down and I'm going to read out. And it's not so much a visual video as just listening to the words. Okay, so listen to this here, right? I hope you can hear it okay, right? So bear with me. So this is page 772 on my logbook. It's my logbook covering the period, it's logbook number 4, covering the period from March 2001 to March 2004. And it's observing session 774. So I'm going to read this out to you. Aurora Borealis display, night of the 29th / morning of the 30th of the 10th 2003. The time quoted here is 1835 to 0030 GMT. A complete visual naked eye session. So here we go. Walked out the back with the intention of finding 2P Enki. Rechecking the comet suspect in Behutas, then doing some general comet hunting. When I saw that the sky was completely covered in mist, destroying all the transparency until I realised something looked suspicious. A second look and I realised that it was a giant aurora, the brightest I have ever seen in my entire life to date. It took the form of a giant wedge or teepee, bright blue in colour, that reached up to the zenith, blocking out all but the brightest of stars. Very bright white rays appeared, so I called my mum out so we could both observe it from the back garden. Soon afterwards, myself and Connor went to the back pitch to get a better panoramic view. It was worth it. The display grew in magnitude. After several hours, we could see hundreds of thin white rays reaching to the zenith, moving very quickly eastward and later westward as they blocked out light from the stars. Even the eastern, western and part of the southern sky was covered with rays. My next door neighbour James and his son also came out to the pitch to observe it. My mum said it was even mentioned on the news. The rays converged overhead into an apex, like being inside a cone and looking up. The apex was between Pegasus and Cygnus. It was very bright, with detailed structure and dark zones, very complex in shape. The display was a bright blue and red appearing in the west and east sky sections. We could see bright streamers of light brightening and fading and flickering and twisting like flames in a fire, moving quickly, absolutely amazing. A nice phenomena in the west, low down, was that the aurora and streamers seemed to move in a tight curve around the star Arcturus. We also observed double bands and double zones and dark rays. The strange thing was that below the bright arc in the north was a dark, empty semicircle with stars and southern Ursa Major visible as if it was a normal night. Very unusual, I'd never seen this before. It was getting very cold, so Connor went inside and I stayed out, thinking the best was over. But soon the Aurora lit up again for a second run. This was the best part. The whole sky was dominated by hundreds of red and blue fast-moving rays that reached the zenith, where they connected into a brighter, complex-shaped apex with dark structures inside within the constellation of Triangulum. What was outstanding for me was the speed at which the apex rotated in an anti-clockwise direction. It looked like a huge disco ball in the sky with hundreds of twisting rays. I really just can't find words to describe the display, but I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Unbelievable, with 3 exclamation marks. It was also a nice pre-Halloween treat, as Halloween is only 2 days away. The geomagnetic storm was caused by the large sunspot group I observed yesterday, which also sent CMEs and flares in our direction, some of the strongest ever on record. I went to bed at 00:30 AM, but the Aurora was still raging, and I suspect it did all night. I can't wait to hear reports from other observers and hear their impressions. Conditions: very cold night, calm, quiet, good seeing conditions and a dark sky. Unforgettable night. This was my 31st Aurora display. So a pretty cool account. That apex or TP is talking about is of course a corona. And you get that huge form overhead with the rays converge. Only happens really strong geomagnetic storms. But that was a phenomenal. But that was the 29th of October. And on the next page I have another Aurora observed the following night on the 30th. And again the next night on the 31st. So that's 3 nights in a row of Auroras.